Good evening and welcome to the June 11th, 2019 meeting of the Guilderland Board of Education. Would you all please silence your cell phones and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on our agenda this evening is public comment number 1. So in accordance with our policy, I would ask that everyone commenting this evening keep their comments to less than 3 to 5 minutes. And the first person we have is Christine Kenefick.
Good evening. I might need about 6 minutes. My name is Christine Kenefick, and I am a parent of a junior here in the school district, and my daughter graduated approximately 4 years ago. And since 1995, Guilderland High School has a tradition of permitting students with a 95 average or above to sit on stage at graduation. And Guilderland High School, with the support of this board, changed this policy 1 month ago. Tonight, I am compelled to stand before you to respond to the notions that we have been as a school district of exclusion by having such a tradition. And further, that this tradition fosters mental health issues in our children. I would also like to combat terms like indefensible, absurd, and wrong when talking about this issue and this worthy debate. I do not want the record in this chapter of this school district's history to close standing on the proposition that we as a school district, or we as parents or students, exclude or have been excluding others, or that we ignore or have been ignoring mental health issues, or that we foster improper ideals about the importance of students' achievement because for 25 years, Guilderland High School has sat these students on stage, and many of us thought and believe it was an honorable tradition. I would like everyone to consider that the policy is every bit inclusive with the school district's goals of inclusivity and fostering a love of learning. Why? Because it recognizes that all students take a different path of learning, and all students were eligible for the distinction. One of the chief complaints that I heard, and I'm sure you heard, about students sitting on stage is that it was not fair because some students took easier classes. In 8th and 9th grade, and for every year thereafter, each student and their parents sit down with the great counselors at this school to go over their own unique educational path, taking into consideration that students' ability, motivation, and goals. Some students would never describe a class as easy, and we should not ridicule, judge, condemn, or demean that student's educational path, and we should never, ever, ever tell that person that their path was not hard. Each child finds his or her own lane. Each child, and the lanes are indeed varied. Honors courses, Regents levels, or a combination thereof. Some students leave this campus for BOCES to start their vocational training. Yet all were given the same opportunity and the same challenge. And in the words of Dr. Wiles herself, to these students, to our current students, she challenged them to earn a seat on stage. And if only those in honors and graduate level courses were on that stage, I would agree that we might have a problem with exclusion. But that stage represents different paths of different learners of all levels. And I submit that celebrating learning for all students and recognizing student achievement are not mutually exclusive. And we should not harshly judge anyone for supporting a tradition that was started many years ago and that many of us believe is honored. There is nothing wrong with teaching our children to value their own individual choices in their academic journey, to respect the need to measure and summarize this achievement in the form of a GPA, and to also teach them, perhaps above all, that to honor others with grace for achievements that maybe they were unable to obtain for themselves. 53% of current students polled seem willing to do so. The assumption that our children are only working hard for grades and to sit on stage, as opposed to their love of learning and their desire to improve themselves, casts negative aspersions on these students that are judgmental and harsh and unwarranted. Our children, my child, is intrinsically motivated. And we seem to undermine just how hard it is for any of them to actually sustain a 95 average in whatever path they take. And if you or anyone in this room thinks that the only thing our children think about is they contemplate and complete every assignment, test, lab, and group project for the dozens of faculty members over the past 3 years is that stage, you are wrong. But do not judge them because, as part of their journey, they accepted the goal given to them by the superintendent and by the officials at Guilderland High School to earn a seat on that stage. And if the practice is so abhorrent to the ideal of inclusion, why are we even permitting it in 3 weeks? I also submit to you that recognition based on fair and accepted standards bolsters the notion of hard work, persistence, and dedication. It serves as an inspiration of what is possible, not just in academics, but in life. And I fear that we are setting up our children for failure if we continue to erode distinctions. And I submit to you that graduation is indeed the most appropriate venue for such recognition. No matter what wonderful and enriching extracurricular activities our children partake in at this high school, we cannot walk them into that SEFCU arena and hand them a diploma unless they have fulfilled the educational requirements to earn it. We honor people every day as children and adults and are faced with traditions of distinction every single day. We honor people in orchestra with first or second chairs. This surely does not take away from the rest of the orchestra. We select captains on sport teams who might wear a band around their arm as public recognition of their leadership and hard work. And we watch as they walk out into the field and accept the toss of the coin on behalf of their teammates. But this does not take away from the rest of the team. And right now, here in our gym, and I just walked over there to confirm it again for myself, banners are hung on the wall listing the individuals who have achieved the distinction of playing a sport for 12 seasons while at this school. An honorable achievement worthy of ceremony and public recognition in that the most appropriate venue, our gym. And yet, we know that many students were unable to attain the accomplishment because either they were cut from a team or because they have a physical disability that prevents them from playing a sport. But should we discontinue this public honor because it violates a policy of inclusion? As for current mental health issues that are faced by students, I fully agree that anxiety and stress can be issues faced by some students. But we cannot make sweeping generalizations about what causes some students to face mental health issues. And just because someone suggests the use of a GPA to measure academic achievement runs counter to student mental health initiatives does not make it so. I fully appreciate that this matter appears to be a fait accompli, and I am standing here before you spitting in the wind. But I want to take the time to defend what has been called indefensible, and to have a voice for those 53% of students. We teach our students and children every day. Make a commitment, keep a commitment. I implore Guilderland High School, with the support of this board, to keep your commitment and let this gesture of academic achievement continue for at least 3 more years to honor the commitment you made to current 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. Thank you.
Okay, the next individual we have is Stephen Scepter.
I just have a few questions regarding the same issue. I don't know if I can
Sure,
get them answered here.
Our policy is to not respond, but we will make sure somebody gets back to you with the answers to these questions.
Okay, great. The only information I got was from the PowerPoint that I think was put on the website at some point. I do remember when the survey was given out, which we answered. I did notice that only some of the results were published. Christine did mention that I think 53% of the students did say that they were okay with the policy as is. One of the questions that I have regarding this is, well, there was a concern that was voiced about separating the class in their final high school appearance. So my question is, what percentage of the students who identified as someone who would have earned this honor, what percentage of them, what was the split of them? So what percentage voted that they wanted to get rid of the policy, and which were fine with that? So we only have the 53% as overall student body of those that responded. The other question that I have is, so I guess for 2019, that is optional, I think, so for the last year. So what I'd like to know is what percentage of those students have chosen to remain on the floor as opposed to going up on the stage. I think those are really important numbers. And then as far as another comment is, one of the concerns mentioned was, I think this might have been in the Altamont Enterprise article, was about hurt feelings, and because it was such a cut, a solid cut, 95 or above. And then somebody with 94.9 wouldn't make the cut, and they might be upset and try to figure out what went wrong. So I guess the question I have, maybe, or a comment is, if you're going to get rid of this, then what is the next step, right? So I understand the argument about this. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I understand the point that's being made. So if this is traumatic, if it's causing mental health issues, then wouldn't you have the same issues when somebody is standing there with the gold ropes on their arms and seeing the friends with the 95s who have a medal around their neck? It's the same thing. So is that the idea, that then this is just going to carry on? And if you carry that on, then you get into the issue of GPAs in general, right? And I know we got rid of ranks a couple years ago, but again, you're talking the same thing with GPAs. So there's issues. So this person has a 95, I have a 94. The idea that it's for learning, you learn better if you're not focused on your average, I think is one of the points. Unfortunately, colleges do focus on those, and you do need some sort of measurement. And is it an ideal world? No. Can everybody just learn for the sake of learning? Would that be fantastic? Yes. But that's just not how it works. And you can go in with that attitude and try to get into a college, or a selective college especially, but there has to be some sort of benchmarks. So that's it. So yeah, if you can get those answers, that would be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Nancy Marinette.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Marmette, and I'm the parent of a 5th grader at Pine Bush Middle School. And I want to applaud Guilderland for all they've done with special education. My son has done very well at Pine Bush in co-teaching situations in 3rd and 4th and 5th grade. He's made academic gains we would have never guessed he would make. My concern is he's moving to the middle school. I am told there's no co-teaching at the middle school. and that he will have 4 40-minute periods of consultant teacher, 2 in ELA and 2 in math. That's not setting up for success and continuity from what you've been doing from the prior 3 years. It's expecting way too much of these children. You're increasing the rigor, which I wholly support. I want my son to do better. I want him to achieve higher. I want him to do more. But he needs that support. My son needs a lot of modifications. That takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of work on the fly. So to not have co-teaching at the 6th grade seems very short-sighted, and you're going to see all the gains many of these students made. And I know you have 5 elementary schools. I know my son is not the only one in this situation. You've been very responsive to special ed. You've taken care of our kids, and I thank you for that wholeheartedly. But I feel I would be remiss if I didn't come and say, you need to rethink what you're doing with this group of kids going into 6th grade. My son, yes, he is, he's got cerebral palsy, he has motor needs, he has vision needs, he has multiple needs. For him to get resource room, he would have to give up a foreign language that he dearly wants to take. I mean, this was his volition. I want to take Spanish, Mom. He was adopted. He is Hispanic by birth, and this is real important to him. I'm not going to take that away for him to get a resource room. He shouldn't have to deal with that. If we had co-teaching at the 6th grade to support the kids in the 4 cores, you wouldn't need any of that, and it would continue on with what's been going on. As I said, I do applaud all you've done. I think you've been tremendous, and you've put a lot out there. But I think to make this successful, you have to make it roll up with the kids. Would I like my son to be able to succeed with just 4 periods of consultant teacher? You bet. I would be ecstatic. Do I think he's ready for that going into 6th grade? I don't. And I don't think I'm selling him short. I think he's very smart in his own way. He's differently abled. But to not have that support is going to increase a lot of frustration. Right now, he feels good about what he does. He sees his friends, he tries to match their achievement. But if he goes to the middle school and only gets 160 minutes a week of support, he's going to start giving up because he's not going to be able to scaffold towards those kids. So I'm just here to express my concern and my hope that you will relook at some of your special education planning and look at how you can have continuity between grade levels, between schools, between elementary and middle school. You know, I know you're working across the board, and I know it's a very difficult task. But you've risen to the occasion before, and I'm just asking you from the bottom of my heart to consider going there again. Thank you.
Thank you. Marie, can we have somebody follow up with Ms. Marmette in response to those concerns? Someone from the district will follow up with you. Next, we have Jill Daviero.
Hi, my name's Jill DeVero. I have a junior here at Guilderland High School, and I'm speaking on the topic of the seating on the stage at graduation. Just kind of to back up Christine on everything she said, I don't think it should be taken away at all. But if anything, give these kids that have been in high school, starting in 9th grade, that chance to do something that they maybe have been looking forward to, maybe not. I hear over and over again, starting way back when my older daughter, I have a 20-year-old going into her senior year of college, having to change a wonderful activity at Pine Bush because everybody needs to be created equal. We can't teach our kids to win or lose. And I think that's a bad thing because that's what real life is about. So we had to give participation ribbons. We couldn't give winning ribbons anymore. We couldn't do things like that. All kids have special talents, even if it's being smart Doesn't mean they're not working hard. It doesn't mean that they don't care about their community, their school, doing well, studying, and even pleasing teachers and things like that. Sometimes it's a natural talent, just like it's a natural talent to be artistic. It's a natural talent to be good at a sport. Some kids, it's natural. Again, it doesn't mean they don't care about that. As the other gentleman spoke to, someone's feelings were hurt. That's on us as parents to teach these kids that, yes, that happens. Okay, and this is how we deal with it. And then just on the anxiety thing, I have my other daughter is on that end, and I have one on the other who does absolutely excellent. She came through Guilderland fine. I wish I had gotten her help sooner. Would she have done any better? No. Would I have changed the way I raised her? No. I still would have told her, you got to do it. You just got to get up. You got to do it. You got to get it done. And she did. She still does. Got her help now, so it's a little bit better, because obviously as she got to college, it's not like the stress goes away. Taking it away here in high school, it's not going to take away in college. It's going to make it worse. I can tell you that. Okay? And it got me to the point where she did something to her face and picked her eyebrows out to make me realize that she needed help. So it gets worse. So teaching them now to not stress them or anxiety is not good. Teach them now. So I feel it should be kept in no matter what, but especially let these kids that have started high school knowing that it's there and knowing that it's there. They all know it's there for the right reason. That's not their only goal. Okay? So thank you.
Thank you. So I think the board had planned to have a discussion about the graduation seating at the end of the meeting, but because there's people here that spoke to it, I think it's appropriate that we have the discussion now. So I would ask Marie and Mike Piscatelli to kind of, is Mike here? Yep. Explain what the process was. Just at the outset, there seems to be a little bit of confusion that this is a board policy or a board decision. That is inaccurate. So I'd like to ask Mike to come up and explain. Thank you.
So I think it was last May we were sitting here and the topic came up of graduation seating and how it coincided with our topic of inclusion and our discussions about rank. And one of the action items we had from that meeting was that the high school building cabinet investigate the issue and discuss it. So that has been a topic of conversation all school year. We did some survey work with the faculty, students, and parents. We had individual cabinet members go out and talk to their stakeholder groups. We had lots of discussions in cabinet. And as we got through, and we also talked to all the other suburban council schools about what their current practices are at graduation. We took all that information together, discussed it, debriefed it, and came to consensus as a building cabinet that that our decision was to support a move where all the students were on the floor, and that's where we ended up. And then last May 7th, we did the presentation for the board to hear their views on where we stood on that. But I agree, it's a tradition that's been part of graduation, is not a policy.
Okay. So that was a kind of long, thoughtful process that you went through, engaging a lot of different stakeholders throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
At the presentation, I think it was the last meeting in May, you brought it to the board as a discussion and for feedback, and it seemed like the board was in support of what the decision was, but there was still the remaining issue of exactly when this would be rolled out. So it's not set in stone that this would be rolled out next year. There's still the possibility that maybe it will start with the incoming 8th graders into 9th grade in the fall, or?
I think it's important to know, I mean, when we talked about it at Cabinet wanted to enact this year, for this year's graduation. We chose, I mean, Marie and I talked about it, and it was, we felt like with the May 7th presentation to the board, it was just too quick a turnaround to go to families and say, hey, we're changing graduation right now. So we did, the cabinet's consensus was, following that, when I went back and shared that information, was that we did want to enact it at next year's graduation. It gave us time. I mean, I would say at this point, we have been formulating the communication plan of how we were going to get the information out since our board presentation there, and that we've had discussions at Cabinet about that. The Altamont Enterprise was at our board presentation and has now run a story, so the communication is already out there. So they kind of preempted what we were going to say. So we're at this point, we still do have to get formal communication out to the families of this, that this would be a change in practice.
Okay.
So.
Barbara?
In fairness to what the parents have said, most of the times when we make changes, we do grandfather in certain groups of individuals. You've made the decision that this year the kids can opt out of sitting on stage. Would the building cabinet consider, the incoming eighth graders? To me, that would be a fairer way of dealing, with the situation if we could.
I think if I was going to voice the concerns of Cabinet, they feel like the practice needs to change now. And that I understand, I absolutely understand some of the complaints, especially for parents where they've had older siblings who have sat on stage. But, there's a couple of things I guess I would say about that. Right now, the junior class doesn't know who's going to be sitting on stage. That distinction is not determined until the end of the third quarter of their senior year. So that's one thing. So people who believe they are going to be sitting on stage, they may not be sitting on stage. So, but I think the point, I guess I would say, it's a philosophical discussion, and Cabinet firmly believes in this, is that we believe that all the students should be sitting together on the floor. I love what Sanal said at the last board meeting, and I firmly believe what she said too, is that they walked into high school as one cohesive group. They're leaving high school as one cohesive group. I think one thing that's been mischaracterized in a lot of this discussion is that the students are being recognized. No one is taking away the recognition of their high honors. They are still going to receive their medals. They are still going to stand at graduation and be recognized by the audience. We have many ceremonies where these same students are being recognized, whether it's junior and senior awards, whether it's Board of Ed awards, whether it's National Honor Society induction. Those are all specific ceremonies that are targeted at our high academic achievers. So I don't think this one movement of moving students on the floor is taking away recognition from that group of kids. In fact, I think it's recognizing that I agree actually what Christine said about what she said. All the students and their strengths and accomplishments need to be recognized. But I think they should be recognized together as one group on the floor. I don't think one group of students should be set higher on the stage from the other students. I just don't buy into that. So, like I said, can I go back and discuss it with Cabinet? Absolutely. I can tell you from our discussions, I think we've discussed this thoroughly. I know where they stand on the issue, that they want, as I said before, they wanted to enact it right away.
The only reason why I asked the question, 53% of the kids supposedly wanted to retain the current tradition. And next year there'll be different kids on Cabinet. And, the question is, how much information was disseminated by building Cabinet to parents? I know they did the survey and, things like that, but it's just so hard for a group of parents, like you said, who have had older siblings, that this was an honorary type thing, to not be forewarned. The eighth graders coming in, okay, this tradition has ended, but the kids that are, currently in the queue, so to speak, it's a little bit harder to swallow. And I'm just saying, if next year you have a new building cabinet and, maybe more parents can come to the meetings or know about them, and, maybe they can sway them a little bit to wait until eighth graders come in. But that's just my point.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I also I just want to say, I really value shared decision making, and, and I really value the inputs of the stakeholders. I really feel like, honestly, probably the most outspoken people in our conversations were our parents and our students in this conversation. And I worry about what message we send to our shared decision-making body when we say that we're going to kind of disregard your decision here or your feelings here, and we're going to wait for a new group to come in and hear your opinions. What that means, we're discounting what the past group that came in that made their opinions very vocal about it. We had a lot of hard discussions about it. It was very similar to the rank conversation. We had a lot of hard conversations about it, and not everybody was on the same page when we were initially starting it. I think that's the beauty of consensus. People hear the pros and cons of everything, and then we get to a place where everybody says, can you support that decision? And we get to a point where it was unanimous that everybody could support this decision, and that's where we landed. But I can talk to the group again about timing of the implementation.
Teresa?
I was just going to say, you had said that the board as a whole kind of agreed with what the presentation was of the building cabinet. I didn't agree with it. And I have an issue with the fact that the presentation was great. I really thought it was very thorough, and I appreciate all that presented. But I think what was presented was at 53%, whether it was 53, 48, it wasn't a clear-cut number. 53% of the students that were polled, that decided to take the poll, had said that they wanted to keep it as is. Then there were it was close to 50-50, but again, just over, of parents that said that they wanted to keep it as is. And then the only ones that were hugely in the other direction was faculty.
Correct.
I think that even though I had said at that meeting that I think that the numbers weren't great because it wasn't a huge percentage of all the students, it wasn't a huge percentage of all the parents, so it wasn't a clear picture. I think of that, I personally, I'll be honest, I don't think that the stage thing is more of the issue. I think the issue is, and I think Barb and I brought it up at the last meeting, the numbers is the issue. I think that's the clear-cut issue, that you have 50-some-odd kids, 60-some-odd kids up on that stage, where back when it was instilled, back in 94, 95, you had 13. I don't think Guilderland Water is that much smarter today than it was back then. So I think there's something to that. I think that's the big picture there. I'm not going to take a clear stance either way, to be honest, just because I don't think the stage thing is really the issue. I think that's more of the issue that was very obvious, and that I just feel like there's an issue with the percentages of the amount of kids that are getting the grades that they're getting, that there are that many kids today than there were then. And I don't know the history all well, but I do think I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the reason why we even have the stage where we have the kids up on the stage is that we got rid of salutatorium and valedictorian.
Yep, that's correct.
Why we did that. I did say at the last meeting, I worry that, and it was stated with one of the parents that said that, we are headed there. And you can deny it all you want, but I do think you're getting rid of this, you're getting rid of that, you're getting rid of this, and everyone's going to get a degree because you got a pass-fail. I really do. I think and I know it sounds hilarious, I know it sounds funny, but we're headed that way. And whatever the cabinet decides is a select few of people in the cabinet who decided it for the whole. The percentages of who was polled, I almost feel like you're saying, well, I don't care, I'm the president of the cabinet, we're going to make this decision as a select few. It's almost like saying the board saying that, even though one person of the board speaks one way, and they just, like Christine
I would
said.
not say that I'm taking any position where I'm saying as the president of the building cabinet, I'm making
No,
this
but you're
decision.
saying the building cabinet decided this.
Correct.
That's not
Yeah.
every student in the school deciding.
No, I
That's what I'm
understand.
saying. So a select few, even though they polled everybody, they're saying,
Ignore the
we're going to
polls.
do this.
Yeah.
Because we feel it's important. That's, I have an issue with that.
Yeah, I understand.
That's just a point of view.
Seema?
So I know there's 9 different people. We all have different opinions on this, and I know you've presented to us about it. I happen to agree with you that it was student-driven. To me, that's really important. And the fact that they are recognized in other ways, just like the ways you mentioned. And then third, that this was a shared decision-making process. And so I don't see, you can take our opinions as a board and do what you think, with that opinion. But am strongly opposed to going against what the building cabinet. I mean, what's the purpose of having that process in the building cabinet if we're just going to not support it? I mean, we can all have our different opinions, but luckily this is not a policy that we have to vote on right now. So I would just say if people want to be involved, it sounds like, from what I understand, there are opportunities where parents could be involved, and there are still opportunities where parents could be involved. So I would say that people should get involved if they, if they feel strongly about this.
Thanks.
Well said, Seema. Judy?
I agree, Seema, that this wasn't our decision, it was the building cabinet decision. And they're representative of the people. I mean, they aren't just there and making decisions that are objectionable. And I think, Teresa, the 5347 or whatever the number, yeah, I know. I don't know.
It was just that it was close to 50.
It was close to 50, but if, it depends then on how many people and which people.
That's
you know,
exactly what I
and so
said.
that's hard to say. So Seema, you said very well what I was thinking. If this was a building cabinet decision, this is a shared decision-making school district, then that was their decision, and I would go with that.
And I think we also should just repeat that building cabinet has been working on this issue for a year plus at this point. So obviously they have more information and evidence and have spoken to a lot more people than what any of us on this board know or anything that we've read in the paper. Barbara?
I just want to point out one more thing. It was the building cabinet back in '95 or whatever that made the decision to eliminate, the salutatorium and valedictorium and put the kids on stage. So, again, different building cabinets say things differently, and over time, with the push for inclusion and all that now, I personally have no problem with changing it 3 years from now, but it makes me a little bit anxious that kids that were expecting it, aren't going to have the opportunity.
No, I understand that.
Tim?
I just want to say thank you to the parents who spoke tonight. Could tell it wasn't easy because you're going up against political correctness, and that's getting to be almost impossible in this day and age. So I'm glad you brought your views. I just have a couple random thoughts that sometimes, my experience in Guilderland has been shared decision-making sometimes is we're going to bring a decision in and we're going to hope you all share with it. That does happen. I'm not saying it has here, but there has been cases of that in the past. So, that's one thing. I also am getting concerned that this whole idea of inclusion, we're changing the definition of inclusion. It suddenly is becoming a catch-all for any kind of decision or change or, I would say, agenda, and we use inclusion as kind of a cloak, because it's just like we had a conversation in the hall on the way here. Once you say something's, well, I'm talking about something that's best for children. Well, then anybody who comes up against that or argues an opposite side is, the bully, not doing what's best for children. It's kind of inherent in that. So I think that's dangerous. I think we're seeing examples of language being changed right before our eyes. I can't think of any other example right now, and this will be a little bit coarse, I guess, but suddenly we're talking about legalizing sex work and sex workers. That's in the news all over the place today. That's coming right out of our legislature. I was listening to this a lot today, and I'm just shocked at the language, the way language is being twisted, contorted, and used to promote agendas. And I think we have to be careful when, we have been practicing inclusion in Guilderland schools forever, because we have always taken all learners and put them together in one way, shape, or form, and in all different arenas, whether it's art class, phys ed class, or classrooms. And that's inclusion. We're starting to take that word and really mushroom it out into a lot of other areas. I don't know if it's right or wrong, I just am making an observation about it, that I think it is a bit of a slippery slope. I guess those were the points that I would have liked to make. And I would also say that I enjoyed Ben's article in the Altamont Enterprise, the letter to the editor. I sent an email to the student who spoke with you because she was excellent. I would like to send emails to the parents tonight because I thought they were excellent too. I think at the end of this discussion, at least we've had a lot of great opinions. Very well presented on all sides. Still doesn't make the decision any easier.
No, absolutely not. And listen, I respect everybody's opinion, and I don't want to make this sound like this decision was easy. Like, as I said before, there was a lot of debate in the room about what was the right thing to do. And I think what it comes down to, again, I'll go back to what Christine said, we really do, when things come down to a number, there's a lot of things that come into a number. And the slight distinctions, I think some of the discussion around rank weighed into this in some respect. You know, the difference between someone who is ranked 20 versus someone who's ranked 25 might come down to 1/100 of a point. The difference between someone who's sitting on stage could come down to 1/10 of a point. And, we want to honor all students for their hard work. I don't buy into the idea that students that only took the easy classes are the ones sitting on stage or are higher in the rank. I don't buy into that. I think all students, we really do try to place them where they can work their hardest and achieve the most out of where they are. And I think students who are sitting in a Regents class getting a 95 are working just as hard as the students sitting in an AP class. So I don't buy into that philosophy. But what I was going to say about it, though, is again, when we got these slight distinctions basically separating students, I feel like it causes some problems. And again, you're right, the students are still going to be wearing the medals. And I don't think I was the one who used the word hurt feelings in anything I've said, but there's tiny little things that that are based on thousands of grades that happen in 4 years. And so when we're talking about even the conversation about grade inflation, when I was talking to the reporter at the Altamont Enterprise, it's very simple to say it's just grade inflation. There's a lot of things that have changed over the years, over that 25 years. Now, I can't point to one thing and say that's why grades are different now than what they were. And I do think there's some elements that we have to look at and say, why are grades that high? But there's also a lot of practices that have changed. Our populations have changed. What students their expectations post-high school have changed a lot in that 25 years. And I think a lot of that has impacted grades that have happened throughout high school, too. So.
I'm sure there's not one clear answer.
No. Yeah.
Sean?
I agree. There's a point I agree with everybody right here, right? As the parents make excellent points, and I think that's, one question is that we've heard from the parents. What are you hearing from the students? Because that's what my concern is, that, they're involved in the shared decision-making process. I don't want to do something here that negates what they're doing and says, well, it doesn't matter what you do because if the Board of Ed doesn't like it or enough people talk about it, we're not going to implement it. Mm-hmm. I like what Barbara said about, saying that the incoming class will end the practice starting with the incoming class, so they've never had that expectation. Parents might, that's different, right? Parents and kids are different.
Yeah.
Because sometimes as parents, we hold on to things much stronger than kids do, and I've seen that firsthand in doing some schoolwork in another life. But I'm curious to know how we plan. So if we were to do that, if we were to sort of take that approach and say from the incoming 8th grade moving forward, it's a hard line. But how do we plan for graduation in the coming years? And can we leave that up to a group from the class to plan that, to understand how that should be implemented? Let the class who's affected make that decision directly, and keeping the option we have now, where you can opt out of sitting on stage, but getting to a point where we discontinue the practice. But in the meantime, while the students are in the high school, allowing those who are going to be sitting through those ceremonies the greater opportunity to weigh in on that. I don't know. That's my thought. But again, I defer back to the building cabinet and the shared decision-making model. It's not, we don't live with it. It's not my decision to live with. It's not affecting me.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mike, thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it and all your hard work on this. Barbara?
Just follow up, as long as we still have Mike Laster and Damien, are we going to have any classes in the middle school that are combined, the co-teaching?
8th grade will be co-taught starting next year.
Just 8th grade?
Yes, it's,
Are we planning on going?
well, that's the plan, but, it's a heavy financial lift, as you know. We're hiring 3 co-teachers, matter of fact, I think tonight. But the plan was to, since we've gone 9, 10, 11, to come back down to 8th grade to help with that transition from 8th to 9th, which is a heavy lift for our students. So, not to foreshadow next year's budget, but I can very well imagine Mrs. Knowles coming to me asking for 3 more FTEs so we can do co-teaching in 7th grade and then 6th grade after that. It's just, it's a big financial lift. And there's a lot of professional development that goes along with it. It's not simply hiring the teachers. There's a lot that goes into it. So even doing more than 1 grade at a time, if we could afford it, would be a challenge to do well.
I guess I could understand what she was saying from the little kids coming up to the middle school, sort of starting at 6th instead of at 8th, and then 6th, 7th, 8th.
I've heard that before, yes, as well, yeah.
Okay.
Your message is well heard, Mrs. Marmette. We understand completely.
When our kids go into middle school, we're making the commitment. We're all the way through 6th grade at this point, and we're starting at 9th and 10th next year. So we know it's a heavy lift. We know it's expensive, but it really pays off in great dividends for our students, for all students, even students that are not students with disabilities.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is approval of the consent items, which consist of the minutes from the May 28th meeting, the CPSE and CSE recommendations, personnel action items, textbooks, and the financials. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Barbara, second. Judy? Questions or comments? Ben?
So the minutes around the policy change that we made
Yep.
are not quite accurate. In the minutes, it says appropriate disciplinary action, including potential restrictive computers in school, and it should read restriction of technology in school. So I just wanted to note that since it's policy.
Okay. It's written accurately in the policy, though?
No, because the only written record of the policy that I know of is from the minutes, because we changed it ad hoc with, we said vote on Damien's words, and so I went back and listened to Damien's words, and these are them, and not the other one.
We all go back and listen to Damien's words.
So Ben, could you repeat them one more time so Mrs. Livingston can get them?
Appropriate disciplinary action, including potential restriction of technology in school, will be taken in the event of violations of this policy.
Just changing the one word.
Restriction of technology is
Instead of
replacing
computers. Yeah, that one.
restrict computers.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 9-0.
Before we move on, I'd like to recognize Kelly Willits, who is sitting in the back with her husband and Mr. Laster. Kelly will be joining us as our middle school house principal on July 1. Congratulations.
Okay, and now we move down to our information items, curriculum and instruction. Damien?
Thank you. I have 2 textbooks submitted for your information. The first is titled Brave by Svetlana Chemkova, and this is for use in Language Arts Grade 7. And the second is titled Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, adapted by Damian Duffy and John Jennings, and this is for use in Super English at Guilderland High School. And my second item, I have 2 plans submitted for your information. These are both state mandated plans. The first is the Project SAVE plan, and the second is the Professional Development Plan for 2019-20, and they are submitted for your review.
Great. Thank you, Damien. And now we move to superintendent information items. Murray?
Thank you, Christine. My first item is bittersweet. This evening, we have our opportunity to thank Mrs. Teresa Gito for her 3 years of service on the Board of Education. It's been wonderful having you around our table. You were first selected, if you can't remember, back in July of 2016. You've been with us for 3 years, and you've served on our audit committee, which is always a
chair of audit.
And chair of audit, and also our business practices subcommittees, and you've also served as well as a PTA liaison to our schools. So we'd like to thank you for your time, to the Guilderland community and our students, and your last day on the job, June 30th, June 30th, 2019. So we have a plaque for you.
Don't get ahead of yourself, Teresa.
Christine will call a special meeting.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're so
Thanks,
welcome.
Thank you. Teresa, congratulations. It's really been a pleasure to serve with you and to get to know you, and you definitely will be missed. So hopefully we'll stay in touch, and you're always welcome back.
That's what I just said.
So keep that in the back of your mind. Thank you. And thank you for everything that you've done.
Okay, my next topic, a couple months ago, the board asked me to give you all an update on our mental health clinic, which has recently opened. So in February, the district finally received our approval from the New York State Office of Mental Health, and we were able to open our school-based mental health clinic in partnership with Northern Rivers Family Services. The clinic is located at Farnsworth Middle School, and it's staffed with a licensed clinician through Northern Rivers. To date, there have been 21 referrals from all 7 buildings, and there are currently 16 students who are admitted for service. At full capacity, we can serve 25 students and families, including during the summer months. So although the startup's been a little slow due to delays with the state approval process, we anticipate the clinic to be fully subscribed early in the 2020 school year. So far, so good. Lisa Knowles and Mr. Laster have been instrumental in helping the process come together. It was a long one, with lots of bureaucratic twists and turns, but we landed in a good place, and we're just looking forward to see it continue to grow.
And we have all the schools now, not just, for a while, we could only have Farnsworth. Wasn't that the problem?
Well, yes, we ran into
one of the problems.
changing expectations, because it was school-based but designed to serve the district.
Right.
And the Office of Mental Health had some concerns about having students be transported or getting to the middle school to receive service. So we had a couple conference calls and a couple long letters, and all
They've
worked it out. So we are able to transport students if they so desire, if their parents can't get them there, from all 7 of our buildings. So it's good. My next item is that the 100th Annual Convention and Education Expo for the New York State School Boards Association will be held in Rochester this year on October 24th to 26th. Registration opens on July 15th. If board members are interested in attending, please let Linda Livingston, our board clerk, know as soon as possible, because we get a discount on the registration fees. Also included with the materials here is the 2019 resolution kit. If there is any interest among any board members for considering a resolution to be taken up at the floor at the convention. So it's there for your reference. And last but not least, our school start time task force, I'm going to give a little update on that. Back in October of 2018, we established a school start time task force, 39 individuals. They were parents, students, teachers, administrators, school board, and community members. The larger task force broke into 5 smaller working groups. 2 focused on research, 1 focused on community outreach, 1 worked on creating options for alternative start times, and 1 group considered policy implications. The large group met 4 times over the school year. The subgroups met independently several times. And in addition, Guilderland representatives also participated in a meeting of 4 suburban council school districts who are also contemplating this change. At the most recent large group meeting, which was back in March, the task force invited the Director of Transportation to review and discuss several options for alternative start times. But because of the complexity of the transportation issues, the district will engage the assistance of a transportation consultant to more fully flesh out options for change and the implications for transportation. We had someone lined up, as I mentioned last time we were together. That individual took seriously ill, so we are in the process of finding someone else to work with, and we're narrowing that down. We're checking some references, so I think that work will be done over the summer, so the full task force can get back together early in September, review the work, discuss options, and then engage the entire community in the discussion throughout the fall. I believe our timeline is still all set so that we could consider making this change for the 2020-2021 school year. But we'll be working fast.
Do you have any idea where the other 4 suburban council districts are in the process?
I think we're all about on a par. Bethlehem actually hired a consultant to actually do the work like our task force is doing, and they just got their report in the last week or 2, so we'll be reviewing that over the summer. Niskayuna is one of the other 4. They have been working on this for months, but I haven't heard, maybe you have, Barbara, if they've made any steps forward. I'm thinking not, or I would have heard. And East Greenbush is kind of where we are looking at options and trying to sort out the transportation pieces. So I think we're all roughly on a par.
Okay, but so if we hire this consultant will also look at what those other districts are doing, because presumably one of the issues they would identify is coordinating with other schools that we interact. But if everybody's moving in this direction, then that shouldn't be as much of a barrier as it might seem if we were trying to do it on our own.
Right. The problem is that there are 20-something other school districts in the Cap Region BOCES who are not looking to make the change. So we would need to consider how we line up our transportation for our CTE programs and a variety of other things. So it's going to be complicated. But, people are continuing to work on it. There's still a lot of excitement among the committee. I just spoke with a committee member today wanting to know what's the next research topic. So keep it going.
Any questions and comments for Marie? Okay. Now we move to board president information. There are several policies presented tonight for a first read, and I will ask if Barbara, the chair of our policy committee, has any comments or would like to elaborate on any of these. So we will move down to action items, school business management. Neil?
First item this evening is a resolution to award the bid for summer 2019 private transportation services to the lowest responsible bidders, meeting specifications as noted in your materials.
May I have a motion to award the bids? Seema? Second, Judy. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 9-0.
Next item this evening is a resolution to approve budgetary transfers totaling $200,000.
May I have a motion to approve the budgetary transfers? Teresa, second, Gloria. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye.
Next item is the approval of the BOCES preliminary 2019-20 BOCES service contracts.
May I have a motion to approve the BOCES service contracts? Barbara, second, Judy. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 9-0.
And finally, this evening, we'd like to thank Ms. Lori Matt Murphy for the donation of 5 flower pots for the butterfly station at Farnsworth Middle School.
May I have a motion to accept the donation? Teresa, second Seema. Questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you for the very generous donation. It sounds like it'll be a nice addition to the butterfly garden. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 9-0. Thank you, Neil. And now we move to board president action items. There's one this evening, which is the appointment of an impartial hearing officer. This relates to an issue that we have regarding a special education student. I don't know, Marie, if you want to elaborate any more on this, or?
Probably not in great detail, but
Sure.
we have a family who has requested an impartial hearing. There's a whole process connected to that and very tight timelines. So in order to meet those timelines, Christine had to sign off on the appointment pending the board's action tonight.
May I have a motion to approve the appointment? Judy, second Tim. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. So now we move down to board committee reports. Audit?
We're meeting Thursday at 8:15.
See, I told you your job's not done. Okay.
Job is never done.
Business practices?
We are meeting next week.
Communications?
We met. We met,
We have Sean?
Well, I wasn't there
Or-
for that.
oh, okay.
Sean wasn't
So
able to be there, so he asked me to
Oh, okay.
cover it for him.
I had to be called away. I just do want to just note that we did change a little bit of our meeting where I asked the group to use a consensus agenda to help us build items. A lot of times I think we get to the meeting and I don't want to say we've run out of things to talk about, but it's good for us to know ahead of time what we plan on discussing. So.
Well, I was going to start off by saying that was a great idea, because we got some very nice suggestions. We had a very good meeting. I'm sorry you missed it, though. First item we dealt with that was put out for there was to reflect on how we did with regard to getting information out on the vote. We thought as a committee we should think about that. Aubrey was there with us. The exit poll will be ready, I guess, this week. You should be seeing that. Voter turnout was up. It was the highest since the mid-'90s. There was a lower percentage of participation in the exit poll. The committee speculated on reasons that might have happened, and one theory is that maybe there was such a high turnout rate, maybe people didn't want to hang around to wait for a computer. We're not quite sure there. Voters might have been less willing to stay to complete the form if they had to wait. So we'll find out a little bit more when we get when we read the comments that were made. The committee complimented Aubrey on her excellent work on the various communication tools that we developed and asked her to develop: the postcard, the newsletter, social media, the video, etc. Particularly successful, we felt, was the information that we got out regarding the reassessment. That really, we thought we did well there. Next item was updating on answering emails from the public. We thought we should think about that again. We felt as a group, we talked about it, we felt that things were going well at this time, we were doing a better job of it, and we just wanted to keep on top of that. So when we get emails, it seems like people are getting a response, pretty much, within a day or two, or even that, quickly, but we were pretty pleased with that. We talked also, the third item was we proposed handbook changes, and especially we had made the change regarding the board meeting evaluation form. We reviewed the board evaluation form again. We had made some changes on it. We don't see any need for any further changes. The committee suggested putting the form on the July 2nd, our reorganizational meeting date, for any further comment and final acceptance, put it in the handbook then. A suggestion was also made to review the evaluation form and the board handbook with our newest member, Kelly, person who's here this evening, during her orientation. So we wanted to make sure that was done. A second suggestion was made to create a schedule for the full board to review the handbook in small increments during the course of next year, so that we just take a little pieces each meeting and say, look at this for the next meeting, like we do with policy things, so that we stay up on it. And it'll force us really to look at it each month too, which is good. Otherwise it just sits on a shelf. Fourth item was, we asked ourselves, are we following up with the community members who are speaking during public comment times, because that was a concern of ours. The committee indicated this seems to be going much better. We were happy with the changes we've made, but we need to continue to focus on this so we don't overlook any responses. Next item, we asked ourselves, is there any interest in establishing a communications link with staff? The committee discussed ways to be more visible to staff, including ways to remind faculty and staff to invite us to things, whether it's an event or an activity. Some are good about doing that, but there are lots of things going on. Aubrey shared some creative ideas, maybe using Bitmojis, and Marie will reach out to Tara for other suggestions as well. So we'll work on that. You did already? All right. Next item we talked about was work on in-house visioning process. The committee asked the question whether or not this topic is really the committee's work, or is it the work of the full board. I said I would bring it up at this meeting and ask if it's possible to set aside a time at the regular meeting next year, an early meeting, and the purpose would be for us to discuss and determine whether or not the full board sees value in the strategic planning, visioning process, and then to establish the timeline and the activities as a group. And our last item Aubrey brought to us was the opt-out notification review. Aubrey shared some of the challenges associated with our opt-out photo data information policy for public relations. Everybody clear on what that is? Okay. The issue arose when a parent of a child who has opted out of any data going out or pictures for public relations work saw her child in a photo on a Twitter account of a teacher in her child's school, but not her own teacher. Her photo ended up there by accident. The teacher was not aware the child had been opted out of photos for public relations purposes. So the incident led to a review of our policy and the determination that we need to do more communication regarding the policy itself on our website, using our calendar, SNNs, opening of school newsletters, registration materials, make sure it's covered in there, and also at open houses in the fall. So we really wanted to push the communication piece on that. But the more challenging aspect of this will be the enforcement, of course. Because social media is so pervasive and used on personal accounts as well as school accounts, it is easy for students to be inadvertently captured in a photo or in another post. This is an issue that all schools are grappling with. Aubrey is working with her peers to look for ideas and effective practices. We also plan to reach out to NYSBA for some potential policy ideas, although they did not have anything when we checked with them last fall. A key to better enforcement will begin with increasing at least building level awareness. We'll start there. The committee agreed that this is a significant issue with many tentacles, and the topic will be revisited when we reconvene. The committee is reconvened in September.
I just have a question. Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yeah.
Sure.
I just have a question. So right now, do teachers not get notification if there's a student in their class that
They
there's?
do. Yeah.
They do.
They do.
Okay.
But the neighboring teacher didn't have this student's name because they were
Oh,
not in
okay.
their class.
All right, all right.
Right, but
But
that
the-
seems to be the biggest issue, is making sure all of the adults in the building know.
Know who.
But
and
it
can be a big,
Yeah.
it's a huge
Yeah,
issue.
which surprised me. I just didn't realize all the
And then-
It's a
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
issue for the parents who don't want their children online, so.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, we're gonna have to find a way to make sure that everybody knows who's on that list, because it's
And then the
it's
things with
unacceptable.
Twitter accounts, and this is what's public and what's not, and it's more complicated than I first thought, so it's going to take some work. But I'm sure everybody's going to be dealing with this.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking with my parent hat on, because I wouldn't even think that I would need to do the opt-out if I wanted to make sure that my kid wasn't in a picture on Twitter. I might be okay with what the school puts out in terms
Exactly.
of news and information, but when it shows up.
But it's a whole opt-out, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But we get like a notification right at the beginning of the school year about it, basically saying that you're in unless you opt out. So I guess that would be the opportunity. I'm not saying that I disagree. I know
more
from
complicated,
talking
but-
to people, it's a problem everywhere. I actually appreciate that we have this policy, because doing the other the other way would be impossible, especially with this size district and the technology that we use. But yeah, it's obviously a problem.
Yeah. It's going to come up. We're going to hear about it.
Well, the other thing, kids take pictures of each other.
Yeah.
And, Snapchat and all this other stuff. There's no way the school.
Oh, it's true. grandkids.
Yeah, but
Soon
that's
she'll
not
have
the
her own
school.
Bitmoji.
That's not a teacher in the school. That's not on behalf of the school.
Right.
That You can't control what the kids do or what other
No,
parents.
we're responsible for what our staff and we do.
What if a sub does? I don't know.
Well, there's also just private teacher time, when they're not being an employee. One of the things mentioned was private blogs, and there's information there. And even if they're not pictures, there's information there that maybe a parent has opted out on releasing data, right? Or just, so, one of the things I brought up at the meeting was that you can't bury your head in the sand, right? I mean, social media and the interconnectedness of the web is only going to get bigger and more pervasive in our lives. So, with however we proceed with enforcement, we need to be careful not to try to say just no and have that not work at all for anyone. So, it'll take some nuance, as Gloria said.
It's a very, very good discussion. I mean, it was good. Ben, Judy was there, I was there, Marie was there, Neil was there, Lynn was there, and Aubrey was present as well. So there was a lot of good discussion.
Can I ask one more question? Can you back up for a second for business practices? We don't have a meeting this Thursday. It's next Thursday.
When is it?
Because I have both
20th.
on my calendar.
It's the 20th.
Okay.
I did too.
Okay.
And then we got the email that it's the 20th.
All right, thank you. I don't want to show up twice.
There'll probably be an event here for you to go to.
No, about 8:15.
You can come to my audit meeting. Policy committee?
We're done for the year.
Done for the year.
Whoa,
It's
Barbara.
only June 11th.
I'm so excited to see that email.
Heard it. It's on the record. Linda, note that in the minutes.
That's for next year. maybe.
Okay. Public comment number 2. I don't think we have anybody signed up this evening, so now we'll move to board issues, ideas, and sharing. Does anybody have anything this evening? Sean?
I just want to recognize Coach Sykes and Coach B, who did the Girls' Day in Sports here over the weekend. That was a pretty remarkable program that I got to take my daughter to and see. And I said it was such a great program. I hope you'll consider maybe a part 2 and expanding it, because it's impossible to cover all the opportunities that the girls have here in sports. There are some that we don't have a bowling alley here, so we can't see the bowling team, and there's, we have our pool at Voorheesville. So we don't have a way of getting that out, but I hope that they'll expand that and make sure all the girls are aware of all the different opportunities here. So great job.
Thank you. Others? Gloria?
I'd like to thank the middle school and high school staff for the awards programs that have been put on at least this week. Next week we'll be hitting the elementary schools too, but thanks for all the opportunity to see those students and celebrate with them.
And we still have the high school.
Oh, there's one another high school,
Tomorrow.
but we've done a couple there. It's nice.
Quick reminder that Thursday is EMC presentations.
Yep.
So.
7 o'clock in the auditorium.
Anyone else? Okay, then we need a motion to go into executive session to discuss issues pertaining to negotiations with the Guilderland Teachers Association Teaching Assistant Unit, as well as the annual evaluation and contract for the superintendent of schools. May I have a motion? Barbara, second Ben. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 9-0. And don't forget to fill out the evaluation.
I don't know, I was going to check my calendar.